Good evening. I'd like to call this session of the December 17th Zion City Council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Here.
Commissioner Fisher?
Here.
Commissioner Holmes? Commissioner Frierson?
Here.
Mayor McKinney?
Here. Item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Brimner, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Will you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
Chris Garner, Pastor Chris Garner is going to lead us in prayer this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the amazing opportunity to pray and to think through what we're going to think through tonight. And also, too, I'm to be at the high school. I trust you'll keep that to yourselves. But I saw your name on the wall, and I think it's amazing I get to meet you right now. So thank you so much. Before I read, I have a very quick verse. So if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being of full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus. Lord in heaven, thank you so much for who you are and for what you've done for us, God. Thank you for the amazing men and women who are in this room, great minds of Zion who are coming together to think through issues and different, I guess you can say, problems that we're facing today. Thank you that we can come together and talk through these things as a people, as a community, even as a congregation. And thank you, Lord, that we have the opportunity to pray and ask you for wisdom and discernment. We're just people, but we need you, and we need your hand on this. It's important. I pray that you would keep us connected, whether we agree or disagree. I pray that we can be respectful, and I pray that we can hear each other out. Thank you so much for who you are and for what you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Pastor Garner, one quick question. Which verse was that?
That was Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 5.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
As customary, we also have a moment of silence for our military, our veterans, those that have served, those that have fought and died for our freedom, as well as our first responders and other employees throughout our city. So if we just have a moment of silence, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you. Item number 4, agenda changes. Commissioner, are there any agenda changes?
Just one. Motion to move item 8A to 9E, and then to send all matters by one letter.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Frierson? Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. At this time, we're going to, item number 5 is we're going to go into a public hearing. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Frierson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. At this time, if any of our citizens have comments prior to our public meeting, you can come to the podium. You have 3 minutes to speak what's on your mind.
Do we need to do the list, or?
No, that's citizens' comments. This is for the public hearing. If you have any comments before the public hearing, you can make those comments. Yes, is for the proposed property tax levy for 2019.
Thank you, Mayor and Councils. My citizen comments are regarding this, so I can be scratched off the citizen comments, I guess. Taxes are always a big issue. Mayor and Councilwoman Holmes both ran on no new taxes just this past April, or past election. I hope that you will stick to what your word said on your literature by saying no new taxes. I have a feeling this council will raise to the max tax levy, as they have done often every year. But us as citizens can't afford it. I don't care if it's $5, $10, what your reasoning is. We fully are aware that it could lead to more cuts, and that will be the threat. You have to figure it out. We can't afford it. Can't afford $10 more. I'm working 3 jobs to stay in this city. Do you want another abandoned house? Because that's what happens. You'll have more rentals, more people who can't afford to live here. They will go north. They will get out of this town. Enough is enough. Mr. McDowell, you are the only one that has voted no consistently. I hope you stick to that. I don't care what the reasoning is. Enough is enough. We can't afford it. The reasonings do not matter. I think I speak for a majority of the people here that we do not want any more taxes. Hold it flat. The other towns around here have. Figure it out. There's places to cut. You may not agree with it. I believe there is. I appreciate you guys serving, and I want to wish you all a happy Christmas and Merry New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comments?
Good evening, Ron Molinaro. I'm here for the same purpose that Jason is, that we Zion, just not from the individual tax burden, but even as if we continue to raise taxes, we are not going to be able to seek investment in our community. I mean, at what, nearly 6% assessed valuation, we're one of the highest in the country, folks. And then the state just burdened us with more taxes. I think, as Jason said, not just in Zion, but the whole metro area here is feeling the heavy burden of taxes. And so I ask that you keep your word, hold the line, and find ways to cut. We as a community will suck it up and deal with it, but we can't afford it anymore. As someone who's even seeking to buy a house here, when I look at a home that's $200,000, $210,000, the taxes, 11, 12 grand that's a heavy burden, folks, and you're going to chase people like me away. So thank you. I appreciate your time, your service to our community, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? Mr. Bremner?
Mayor McKinney, honorable sirs, gentle lady, I would respectfully remind everyone in these chambers of the chart out there. I know the city is doing their best to hold the line on taxes, but something like 2/3 of our tax money goes to the schools. I would suggest, perhaps recommend, that the city council invite school board members to a couple of these sessions and let us talk to them. I don't know when their meetings are, but perhaps having them here in these chambers to hear the concerns of the citizens might help alleviate some of the tax problems. I do thank you for your time, your courtesy. I request permission to stand down, sir.
Permission granted. Any additional comments?
Throws it over to me. I'm David Nabel. I'm the city administrator and the director of finance for the city. I just wanted to go over a little bit of how the property tax levy works. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. It's a lot more complicated than we can cover here. You're welcome at any time to come and talk to me about it, and I'll talk your ear off about more than you want. But what I presented to council for tonight is 3 options, just to be able to look at the impact of what each of those would be. They can vote on any of those or anywhere in between, but at least this gives some options. So we presented a flat levy to them, and then we presented a PTEL capped levy. So PTEL is property tax extension limitation law. That's the maximum that we hear about. It's limited by consumer price index or 5%, whichever is lower. So in this year it was 1.9%, the consumer price index. So if we went to a maximum levy, it would be a 1.9% increase over prior years. So a flat levy is basic, and the levy is the amount that we ask for from taxpayers, businesses, residents, to basically fund our operations, to pay for the pension funds. It's just the amount that we submit to the county, they put on the tax bills and remit to us. So when we say a flat levy, we're saying it's the same amount as last year that we're asking for from everyone. And however that spreads out, theoretically, you'd be paying the same amount of city taxes. Can't speak, as Mr. Brenner brought, can't speak to the schools and the other taxing bodies. We represent about 14% of the total property tax bill. We own 14% of that responsibility for the tax bill. So anything we decide tonight doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be what your total tax bill. If we say flat, your tax bill may still go up from other taxing bodies. If our portion is 2%, other taxing bodies may stay flat. So you have to look at the tax bill as a whole. But I'll start with the maximum levy just to give you a little perspective here. The increase would be about $150,000 at a 1.9% increase. So that takes into account new construction and then the old tax base. So any new construction is new tax dollars. That's what we try and bring in. We try and get development in because that's the biggest way we have to alleviate tax burden on the rest of the tax base. Unfortunately, the new construction was not that much this year, only a couple $100,000. But of that $149,000 of new revenue, about $5,400 would be coming from new construction, and the $143,000 would be coming from the existing tax base, the old tax base. The city's rate would go from 2.45% down to 2.35%, which is a decrease of approximately 4%. The reason for that is property values going up on average 6.5%. The EAV, the assessed value of all property in the city, went up by about 6.5%. So, big picture, you net the two, that's your 2% where it's coming from. So values went up, the rate goes down, value times rate is how much people are paying in taxes. So we have one of the highest rates that, around, which again is made up of all the taxing bodies, but we also have some of the lower property values around. So as property values continue to recover and go up, hopefully that rate continues to decrease. So that's why the rate would decrease, even though we have about a 1.9% increase in taxes. Again, just a quick summary of where this money goes. So there's 9 different functions within the city where this money goes. So we have our general fund, that's what we fund all of our operations with. We have street and bridge, which is what we use for patching, street projects, things of that nature. Fire and rescue, Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, which is the general pension for city employees. The fire pension fund, the police pension fund, and then we have our liability insurance and our Social Security fund. So all of that comes out of the total tax levy to basically fund the operations of the city. What has been one of our issues, and not just Zion's issues, but Illinois municipalities' issues, is pension fund. You always hear about pension fund reform and pension problems and things of that nature. Well, what's happened over time is investment returns haven't lived up to what we needed, haven't met the actuarial requirements, but we have a promise to employees that we will fund a certain level of their salary when they retire. To get to that, we have to put away money now. And every time that return doesn't give what's expected, or employees are added, or whatever the case may be, the amount we have to put away now goes up. So the police and fire pension, we have a minimum requirement that we have to put into those pension funds per the state. There's a recommended amount to catch up, and then there's a minimum required. The minimum required for both the police and fire pension fund together is going up by about $210,000 this year. I don't have a choice in that. I have to put $210,000 more into those pension funds this year. I can levy at a maximum $150,000 more. We've got a problem. We've lost revenue even by increasing the levy. So what we've been able to do is, because we had some fund balances in the IMRF fund, because we had reductions in liability insurance, and because we've dug the Social Security fund out of deficits, we've actually been able to reduce those levies so that even though we have a reduction or an increase in the police and fire pension funds in the amount that we have to put in, we've been able to reduce those levies to offset that, to try and free up as much revenue as possible to fund our general fund operations. So that 1.9% levy would generate an additional $250,000 in revenue for the general fund. Now, anyone who's attended the budget sessions and the budget workshops that we've had knows we have significant financial constraints. We're going to be starting out the year with about an $800,000 deficit. This addresses about a quarter of that. So we're going to continue to look at other revenue sources. We're going to continue to look at cuts to try and dig out of that. But that's ultimately what we're faced with starting when we make the levy decision tonight. So a flat levy basically reduces that amount of new revenue by $150,000. So instead of, we're starting with an $800,000 deficit, we can get about $200,000 from the levy. So we're looking at $600,000 to make up. If we do a flat levy, we're looking at, instead of $600,000, we're looking at $750,000 that we have to make up. Either way, we have a significant deficit that we're going to have to address regardless. We're trying not to compound that, and ultimately that's going to be council's decision tonight. The third option I presented was just a middle-of-the-road levy to basically say at 0.95% instead of 1.9. What would that look like? It's exactly what you think. It's the middle of the two options. So there's a lot of detail in the packets on the bullet points for the commissioners. So I will shut up and open it up to council if there's any clarification or questions on those items.
Commissioner, any questions, any comments?
David, can you just go into the history of how we got to this $800,000 deficit?
Sure. So
what contributed to this issue?
It's kind of a long time coming. I've been here about 7 years, and when I started here, I said 5-6 years from now we're going to be at this point. But what's happened is, like I said, every year the police and fire pensions, in IMRF to a degree, the pension funds increase. 5 years ago we had $1.4 million of general fund revenue because the amount that we had to put into the pension funds was less. 5 years later, that's been cut now by $400,000 because pension funds have gone up. So just status quo, we have $400,000 less revenue to work with out of the levy, just because of that increase in the amount that we have to put towards the pension fund statutorily. Now, we've also had decreases in other revenue sources, sales tax, income tax. There are state policies, state issues that we have to deal with. If there's less business, Grand Appliance, for example, was one. We lost that business to Wisconsin. No surprise, no secret, but that was $80,000 a year of sales tax that's gone from the community. So we've have stagnated other revenues. We've had decrease of the amount that goes to general fund out of our levy, plus just general cost of living increases. We purchase gas, supplies, things just like everyone else. So your cost of gas goes up, so does ours. Your cost of supplies and machinery, equipment, all that stuff goes up, so does ours. So, that consumer price index affects our budget overall as well. So it's just kind of a compound of multiple things.
And in order to, in a magical world, if we had the ability to levy enough to cover that deficit, we would need almost a 10% levy, correct?
to address the 800,000 deficit.
Right. And that's not going to happen in the real world.
Correct.
Because we're limited, we can only raise to the PTEL limit, which is 1.9%.
Correct. And we haven't always done that. Some of the compounding effect is there were a couple of years we kept it flat. There were a couple of years we went half. We did that middle option, where we could have gone 2%. We might have done 1%.
Right.
That has a little bit of a compounding effect as well. But we cannot go above and beyond that in any given year.
And just for historical purposes, how have we been dealing with this deficit in past years?
We've refinanced debt. We've cut where we can. We've got a lot of concessions from employees, and as far as furloughs and attrition, not replacing employees that leave, that retire. We've also incentivized early retirement for some higher paid employees to replace with a lower salaried employee, and then either no raises or furloughs to fill gaps.
And we also transferred money from the water fund.
Oh,
correct?
yes, and which
Yeah.
is
And we no longer have
depleted at
that
this
option.
point. Correct.
Correct.
So if you look at last year's budget, we had about $400,000 surplus budgeted, but that was with a $1.2 million transfer from the water fund.
Right.
You take that away, that nets to our $800,000 deficit that we're looking at.
I think Commissioner Fisher is really hitting on a major point, and that is we're not going to be able to make up this deficit in our budget through taxes, and in the short run, we're not going to be able to make it up through development in the city. We've brought gambling, we're wanting to bring marijuana, but even the revenue, the tax revenue from those sources will not be enough to make up this deficit. So I think we are at a point where our council is going to have to make some hard decisions. Regardless of what we do with this levy, we still have a massive deficit.
The question is, how big of a hole do we want to try to dig out of?
Yeah.
When it comes right down to it.
Sure. I mean, $200,000 difference between the max levy and a flat levy. Yeah.
Correct. That's all I have.
Any other comments from commissioners? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson? Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item 6, citizens' comments. I'm having a difficult time making out the third name. Is it Daphne?
Yes.
And your last name?
Jones?
Daphne Jones?
Yes.
Yes. Daphne Jones.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes for citizens' comments, if you have some comments you'd like to make.
No, I do not. I'm here on behalf of Woodstone. I signed in because of, I thought I was supposed to.
Okay.
It's okay. It happens.
Abner Davis? Citizen comments, Abner Davis?
My name is Abner Davis, and yes, my first time coming to council meeting here. I thought I was doing protocol, forgive me, but right at this moment, I do not wish to speak here.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Item number 7, consent agenda.
Approval of minutes of the regular meeting held on December 3rd, 2019 at 7 p.m. Bills, vouchers 133746 through 134070, drawn on Huntington National Bank. Total $520,146.41.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson? Mayor McKinney?
Aye. 7B? Covered separately already. Okay. All right. Item 8A.
That got shifted.
8B. Appointing a certain individual as a member of the Zone Management Board of the Zion Benton Enterprise Zone per Mayor McKinney. As you know, in 1st of January, we've applied for and been granted the Enterprise Zone here in the city, which is going to help us attract business to try to offset some of these, the taxes that we have, the state taxes and the high taxes in this area. And there are 3 members that are part of this enterprise zone: Winthrop Harbor, Beach Park, and Zion. Each municipality will have a member on the board, and our appointment for this, it will be our Economic Development Director, Sonalita Bronson. She will be our board member on the Zion Benton Enterprise Zone.
Make a motion to approve that appointment?
I'll second.
In addition to that, this will be an appointment that will last until May, and then when we have our other board appointments later on in 2020, she will be reappointed along with the other board members and commissions for the city. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 9, consider passing ordinance as follows. 9A, providing for the levy and taxes for the city of Zion, Lake County, Illinois, for tax levy year 2019 to be collected in the year beginning January 1st, 2020, and ending December 31st, 2020, per Administrator Nabel.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I will not rehash everything I just covered, but your memo just highlights a lot of the items that I discussed during the public hearing. Again, I respect the opinions of individuals here in the council, but I am going to make a recommendation of the 1.9% increase of the levy in the amount of $7,609,592. You do have before you ordinances prepared in the flat, middle, and max amount, so council can approve anywhere from that amount down. That hits our cap. So, but that would be my recommendation in the breakdowns as presented on the ordinance.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that
What-
motion is to
Yeah, motion
accept
to
the
do what?
total levy of $7,609,592 at a percent decrease of 1.9.
That's the motion, and there's a second. Is there a discussion?
Yeah, I have some comments. Our city is in a difficult situation where we have a major deficit. And I guess the issue at hand, like Commissioner Fisher pointed out, is how deep of a hole do we want to dig out of? But the other question is who is going to bear the majority of the burden of that? And our taxpayers have borne a lot of that burden. We have other ways of getting income into the city through development. Some of those have succeeded, others have not. But I don't think we can place more burden on our taxpayers. When these issues have come up in the past, some of the things that Director Nabel and others have said is, well, this is only going to be an increase, and in this case, an increase of approximately $26 per household.
For a $100,000 household.
For a $150,000 house, yeah.
Which I
So,
think is just an estimate for the.
it's just an
public,
estimate.
but
It's just an estimate.
I don't think that's intended to minimize the burden or the impact to residents.
Well, some have said that it's only so much money.
Yeah.
Only so much.
I don't think anybody here is saying that. I don't think that we don't.
I'm just saying,
This is
in
not
years
nice to
past,
have money.
that's
This
what
is
has been
operations.
said. Let me just finish my statement, okay?
No problem.
In years past, that's what's been said. It's only so much. But the problem is that every year we say it's only so much. If we're not going to say it this year, that's fine. But there has to come a point where we're going to have to face the elephant in the room, and that's the huge deficit budget that we have. So I'm not in favor of maxing out our levy. I think in the long run, we need to keep a flat levy. It's not really even a flat levy. If it was going to be actually flat, where we don't have any additional taxes, it would have to be a reduction of 6.5%. And this flat levy is a reduction of 5.9%. So I want to speak for what I think are the majority of our residents. I believe that the majority of our residents would not want a tax increase, and so I'm not going to be able to vote in favor of a max levy. And I'd like to ask our fellow commissioners to do the same and consider a flat levy.
So for me personally, I did consider a flat levy. It's one of those situations for me where I do feel the burden as a homeowner here in the city. I have other family members that pay taxes here. Unfortunately, this is the state that I chose to live in. I don't mean that as a slight to Illinois, but that is how we're taxed. And that is throughout the state of Illinois. That's a burden that falls to a lot of different communities. And so I sit here tonight with empathy for residents that do feel the squeeze tighter than others. However, there's the alternative to that of, do I stick my head in the sand and say that we don't have an issue just to be politically correct and ignore the financial burden that is in front of the city? So at that point, I'm looking at, I can play nice or I can be fiscally irresponsible. Either way, I don't consider it a win-win. It's a tough decision, and those decisions have to be made, and we're going to have to continue to make tough decisions and continue to work with our administrator and continue to work with residents if we want to dig ourselves out of this hole. And so I think that we need to be cognizant of the reason that we make these decisions, because the citizens are going to look to us when services are being cut, when our police force is having people go to other departments, or our fire personnel, because we can't keep up with the level of services that we want to provide to our citizens. So I did consider heavily with the flat levy. However, given those reasons, I think we need to move forward with the PTEL cap. So that's my thought.
I have full respect for your position. I really do. And I wish we had the luxury. We don't. And this city has not had that luxury for a long time. And I have been watching this council for the past several years. I was sitting in that audience when Jim Taylor, when they made a major transfer from the water fund to cover costs. And he said, well, it's a rainy day fund and it's raining. And instead of taking a small amount of pain in the past, when it could have been minimal, this was passed on for years. And now we're at this point. We can no longer afford the luxury of pretending that we don't have a problem. I wish that we had gotten the 1% sales tax, which would have spread the burden across a larger pool and taken it off the homeowners. But everyone was so afraid of it, they rejected it. And so now we have no resources. We can't borrow from the water fund. Even if we pass the levy, we're looking at maybe $500,000, $600,000 that we have to come up with. So next year in January, we're going to be looking at a combination of major cuts. And when we're talking about cuts, at this point, we're talking about bodies. We're talking about firemen. We're talking about policemen. Let's be blunt. We can try and do that. And we can also do tax anticipation warrants. Basically run the city on a credit card for another year. So that's what we're facing. So I know it's a sacrifice for some people to ask them for an additional $25, $26 a year, but consider how much more it would take to take care of this deficit. So we're going to work on our end to try to cut costs and try to find a way to bring in new revenue. But as a homeowner, I want my street patched, and I want my police department to be fully staffed. So I'm willing to pony up an additional $26 a month, or excuse me, a year. Not even a month, a year. So,
It's only just a little bit.
and I understand your position, and that's a great moral position to take, but we have to run the city, and that's what it comes down to.
But we do have to run the city, and I think...
And if you have any suggestions on how we can save more money, please don't sit on it.
I do, and actually I've spoke to the mayor and the administrator about some ways that we could save money. I wish that we didn't do things this way, but this is how the state of Illinois does it. We pass the levy first.
And then we do the budget.
Before we look at the budget. I'd much rather look at the budget and then figure out how much money we actually need to levy, and then levy that amount. But
Right.
we do things backwards.
Yeah, well, earlier this evening, we passed a flat levy for the township because we have enough reserve in the township funds
Yeah.
to be able to do so with no problem. I wish we had that situation on the city end. So that's why I'm supporting the maximum levy, and I think that covers the water.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
No.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson? Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 9B, extending a special use permit for a medical cannabis cultivation center in the G1 General Industrial Zoning District for property located east of Devereux Avenue at 2809 Damascus, per Administrator Nabel.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. 9B and C actually relate to each other, but we'll handle them each individually. We approved a special use permit for a medical cannabis cultivation center down at the property located. That went through the court process. When Flat Rock was not awarded the license, they prevailed in that. It was appealed. They did not prevail on that one. However, they have filed to continue defending their position, and we want to make sure we continue supporting that and make sure that the site is still viable while they continue to fight their case. So we've done it before as this whole court proceedings dragged on very long. We continue to extend the special use and the lease agreement every 6 months to make sure that the site remain viable for their case. So 9B is just extending that special use permit as they continue to defend their position and try and bring this much needed business to the city of Zion. So I recommend approval of the extension.
Make the motion to extend the special use permit.
I'll second.
David, they've asked us to do this because they're going to
Yes,
appeal to
extensions come from the request of
they're going to appeal this to the Illinois Supreme Court.
Correct. We actually have a representative here if there are any questions.
Is this standing in the way of any other licensed businesses?
No.
Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson? Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 9C, to enter into ground lease agreement between Flat Rock Holding LLC and the City of Zion for certain property located at 2809 Damascus, per Administrator Nabel.
Again, this relates to the property down there for a medical cannabis cultivation center. The prior was a special use permit. This is actually the lease to them of the city-owned property. So I would recommend that we extend that as well.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
There's discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 9D is amending Chapter 62, Article 4 of the Zion Municipal Code regarding cannabis regulations per city attorney.
Mr. Chairman, if I could address that.
Yes.
Thank you. So House Bill, Illinois House Bill 1538 was approved and became law as the Illinois Cannabis Regulation Tax Act. Actually, if I may take one step back, Mr. Chair, I will discuss items 9D and 9E, which was old 8A at the same time. Relative to 9D, state law requires that there are no laws that impose criminal sanctions for limited and age-restricted use and consumption of recreational cannabis. This is in a minimum amount, and this is minimum age of 21. The passage of this ordinance, amending Chapter 62, Article 4 of the Zion Municipal Code, is required by state. I would look favorably, I would seek a motion to approve this ordinance in a second.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second. Is there discussion?
I just have one question about the community college training program.
Yes.
So would that allow a professor of that program who was a resident of Zion to grow marijuana in their home?
If that hypothetical has not been posed to me before,
Okay.
but I believe that it would.
I mean, are they like a medical marijuana recipient that can grow 5 plants in their
Yes,
home?
I believe, yes. And now, again, I've never been posed with that, but yes, in my understanding.
And my understanding is, even though that is an option, a lot of colleges have opted out of that and have other alternative programs that they're providing to certify people in that industry, but not where they actually have hands-on because of the regulations federally, and they don't want to interrupt their funding.
Okay.
And to the Commissioner's point, if I may, we are passing this somewhat in a vacuum, that we are saying these are the recommended changes to our code or the city's code based on this, and not, it's, for example, seeking out feedback from CLC to see what they're doing. We're just saying, this is what the status of the law should be, because essentially this is what they said in Springfield, that we are a sovereign state. We have to do what the state says.
Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item 9E is amending Chapter 86 of the Zion Municipal Code regarding taxation per city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be brief for this time. And this allows for the levying of a 3% tax on non-medicinal cannabis sales on its gross receipts. Again, we would recommend approval of the same. We did discuss this during the zoning proceedings and the prior public hearings.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second. Is there discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item 9F, approving and authorizing a certain subordination agreement with Merchants Capital Corp. and DKI Zion LP per city attorney.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address the City Council.
You may.
Thank you. Sorry for talking. So this is actually Mr. Danny Kochner, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Close enough.
Well, this will end with me asking you to come up and address the City Council, so if you could correct my pronunciation at that point in time. But this is regarding the Woodstone Village Apartments, and it is a subordination of the recorded instruments that the city recorded at the time of redevelopment agreement. I'll let Dan come up and address the board about the background on this. And I would like Dan to also expound on the fact, well, somewhat collateral with this issue, the fact that he did reach out to the building commissioner and the police chief about the ongoing operations of the apartment. Dan?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dan Kocher, and I'm the president of DKI. And my company, 10 years ago now, acquired the infamous and notorious Crane Meadows, formerly Waterford Green, who many of you are familiar with. and after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, transformed it into Woodstone Village after an investment of approximately $15 million. And at that time, some of you may recall that we acquired and undertook this project. The property was 60% occupied when we acquired it, and had a lot of problems associated with it. We acquired the property in basically the depths of the financial crisis, which made financing the redevelopment extraordinarily difficult to secure. And at that time, the City of Zion was, extremely supportive of what we were trying to accomplish, and came to our aid with a special purpose TIF for the property that enabled us to finance a portion of the redevelopment through tax increment funds at the site. That turned out to be not nearly as much as we anticipated, because the equalized assessed value at the time was very much higher and didn't increase to the extent that we had anticipated. But nevertheless, we did put a TIF in place, and the first mortgage lender required that that TIF agreement be subordinated to their first mortgage financing, which the city did. And we are in the process now of refinancing the property, and all that is required is for that TIF agreement, notwithstanding the fact that we already fulfilled all of our obligations 10 years ago under the TIF agreement, it still needs to be resubordinated to the new first mortgage in the manner that it was 10 years ago when we put the TIF in place in the first place. And with that, I am available to answer any questions that you have on what we're doing, or and I also have with me Daphne Jones, who is our on-site manager at Woodstone Village for my management company.
Commissioners, do we have any questions?
I don't know if this is
Commissioner
for-
McDowell, you had one prior to council meeting.
Yeah, what is the liability of the city to be a subordinate in this agreement?
Practically none. It is, the remedies are still in place. The TIF agreement is standard. There is not a foreclosure provision in there. So we are in a junior position after the recording of this. We're essentially not in any junior position because of the refinance, and it was already subordinated before. So this is predicated on what they're doing with the refinancing, and it doesn't materially alter the position of the city. Also, if I may, Commissioner, obviously you know my background. I actually practice in this area a lot. This is relatively standard, and I would recommend going forward with it. But does not change any of the remedies, doesn't change any of the relief, really doesn't materially alter the deal. It's something that they have to do for financing. We want them to refinance because it makes them to have a better project, which is better for us, of course.
Okay, thank
Make
you.
a motion to approve and authorize the subordination of the agreement.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll. Or did you have additional questions?
I did have one question. Can you speak to your percent occupancy today?
We are, Daphne, close to 100%.
Yes, we should be at 100% by the end of the year.
Yes.
Can I ask something, Commissioner? Also, the requester is actually making a payment of $7,500 to the city for the accommodation of subordinating this.
All right. Additional questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 9G, authorizing execution of an agreement by and between the City of Zion and Clinton Auto Auction for the disposition of surplus vehicles per Chief Henderson.
Mayor, council members, you have before you an agreement seeking renewal. It's from calendar year to calendar year with Clinton Auto Auction. It's the vendor we use for disposing of surplus vehicles, as well as a vendor, state-approved vendor we use for handling of seized vehicles that are subject to asset forfeiture.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there discussion, questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 9H, amending section 34-43 of the Zion Municipal Code, reads in Life Safety Code per Chief Lewis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Starting January 1st of 2020, the state's fire marshal office is moving from the national or the NFPA 101 Life Safety Code, the 2000 version, up to the 2015 version. The Life Safety Code through the OSFM is the minimum code for which the authority having jurisdiction has to follow for plan reviews and inspection process of code enforcement. So currently our codes, as we have in current ordinance, is the 2006 International Fire Code, 2006 International Building Code, and the most current publication of the National Fire Prevention Association standards. So national NFPA codes vary about every 3 years on a staggered basis where they change, which is why we go with the most current code. To keep in line with the state, I'm asking that we just revise our code and exclude the NFPA 101 from the most current and adopt the 2015 Life Safety Code. It's much easier if we keep the current code, then changes could become a little more strict than I think council may want to do going down the road. So I'm just asking that we keep the 2006 Building Code, 2006 Fire Code, adopt as new the 2015 NFPA 101 Life Safety Code, and then the remaining NFPA codes as in our ordinance. Make sense?
Yep. I'll make that motion to amend section 3443 for the life safety code.
I'll second.
Is there discussion,
Yeah,
question?
just maybe a couple of questions. So in the summary that the State Fire Marshal has put out and provided for us, it says that the new code has a little more flexibility for apartment buildings, new construction, and is that your assessment too?
Well, I'll be honest, I haven't read the entire Life Safety Code book yet. It's about that thick.
Yeah, okay.
And it references back and forth. It's got to do with existing building, new buildings. There's a little flexibility on some end, and then on the opposite ends, it's become a little more strict. So when we get to rehabbing businesses or remodeling, it becomes a little more strict on that. So I don't think it's anything that's going to affect us negatively, but I haven't looked that close to the apartment section of it.
And this is the state has adopted.
The state has adopted, correct.
So regardless of if we adopt it or not, the state fire marshal could come in and enforce this code.
And that's absolutely correct. And they will. They've come in and they've done, like Market Square, Parkside Motel, they do that regularly. One down here, I forget the name, but 17th and Sheridan, Shamrock. They regularly come into those.
Okay, thank you.
There's a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson? Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item 10, discussion and authorization approval. Item 10A, consider zoning docket 19-Z-7 requesting a special use permit to operate an indoor self-storage facility located at 2240 Sheridan Road as petitioned by Strovo Properties per Director Ianson. Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval.
Thank you, Your Honor. 2240 Sheridan Road is currently a multi-use building. In 2006, the current owner opened an indoor storage facility, but at that time did not petition for a special use permit. Strovo Properties is interested in purchasing the property. They requested a special use permit to continue the use of the existing indoor storage and expand to the lower level, potentially in the future expanding to other sections of the building as they become vacant. At the December 5th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission, they recommended to approve the special use permit.
I'll make a motion to approve this special use permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion, questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson? Mayor McKinney?
Item 10B, consider approval of street and alley vacation request in the 2700 block of Hebron Avenue per Director Roberts.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. Attached is an application request from the owners of Zion Associates LP
and LLC for several right-of-way vacations in the 2700 block of Hebron Avenue. The request was tabled at the November 19th council meeting. The applicant is requesting approval of two items. First item would be the vacation of the portion of Hebron Avenue and 3 adjacent alleys, a total of 64,614 square feet of city right-of-way. The second item would be the applicant has submitted a memo requesting the vacation fees are waived if the vacation of the city's right-of-way is granted. Estimated cost for legal fees, recording fees, and right-of-way vacation fees is $33,057.22. The applicant requested a vacation request in 2014. Council approved this request. However, the applicant failed to pay the vacation fees and record the plat of vacation at that time. Plats not recorded within 45 days of approval become null and void. Staff will inform the applicant of council's decision and determine if they still desire to proceed with the application and all costs.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the vacation without the waiving of the fees.
I will second.
Is there discussion?
Yeah. Did they come and talk about alternate approaches besides the vacating of this, such as leasing the property? I think their goal is to consolidate the property there so they have one PIN number for the entire complex. Is that their goal?
Yes, sir. They did not approach me with any other request other than this one. I believe they're probably waiting to see what the decision is off this.
Thanks.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item 10C, tabulation of bids, water distribution system leak detection surveys per Director Roberts.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. Attached are the bid results from the water distribution system leak detection survey held on November 19th. One of the bids was delivered to the United States Postal Service on November 16, 2019. However, the city was not aware of this bid until December 3rd. Staff requested Burke Engineering to contact the references provided with this additional bid. Both Illinois references stated from this late bid stated that they would not recommend this company. Burke Engineering has prepared a bid tabulation and recommendation memo, which is attached. Staff requests and recommends awarding this project to the lowest responsible bidder, which would be M.E. Simpson and Company, which is the second lowest bid based off the bid recommendations from Burke.
I'll make the motion that we approve this bid.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion, questions?
The one recommended by.
Thank you.
I had a question. Is this level of due diligence standard?
No, it's not. We did not have to, legally, I don't believe we had to accept that bid. It's not our responsibility to ensure the bid is here on time or through a post office. I think our bid requirements required to be delivered.
Okay.
So we went above and beyond my feelings.
Okay. And is that what prompted the questioning by Burke to the other customers?
Yes.
Got it. So, and that part is not normal, correct?
No, we request references from all bids.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I'll just support what there's a lot of due diligence done by the Public Works Commissioner on this, and the obligation is on the bidder to ensure that this is done timely. It was not done timely. That's binary. It's either here or it's not. It's on them. It wasn't. We go from there. This due diligence, and we have talked to the staff and the department heads who have done an excellent job with this. They do seek recommendations. They do seek due diligence. And that's honestly why we have Burke. Burke will come and give us a recommendation, and after they hear from the two people in Illinois that they give as references. And they gave these people as references, and these people said essentially don't use them. And that's what the Burke memo says, which we will rely on our, I think, a joint understanding of this.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson? Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 10D, consider approval of the City of Zion annual calendar per Clerk Spooner.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just the annual calendar that we need to have approved by the council so we can send it to the county.
Is there a recommendation to?
I'll move to
City of
approve
Zion?
the calendar for 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Do we have any special meetings that we need to know? I'm just thinking of what we did for township.
No.
Thank you.
All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson?
Aye.
Mayor McKinney?
Aye. Item number 11, departmental commentary, starting with the Human Resources Director, Karen Graves.
As we're nearing the end of 2019, I'm happy to report that we're doing well on our staffing. One of the things that I think that has helped us is actually in forums like this, when we come to you and we share with you the opportunities that we have available. And as I'm interviewing candidates, one of the things I always ask is, how did you hear about this job? And most of them say they heard about it word of mouth. So thank you for all of your support, for sharing opportunities that we have, and I wish everyone a happy Christmas. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Director Ianson.
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
All right. Director Roberts.
Yes, sir, thank you. We have finished the LEAF program. The contracted side of it is done. I'm requesting all residents who have placed piles out there that are in the street to rake those up onto the parkway. We still have the sweeper going out there. They will go around these large piles. That machine is not set up to pick those large of a pile up. Additionally, our alley patching program is kind of suspended. They stopped producing hot mix asphalt. We were not able to get through the whole city, so next spring when the plant opens back up, we will start where we stopped off. However, we will continue to maintain what we can with cold patch. Now, it's a temporary patch. I know a lot of people call us up and go, well, your patch is now gone after 2 weeks. We'll just continue to keep patching that as much as we can.
Administrator Nabel, thank you.
I think you've heard enough from me tonight, so my Christmas gift to all of you will be to stop talking. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone.
Chief Lewis.
The inevitable is going to happen sooner or later. We're going to get hit with that big snowstorm. Knock on this, whatever might be wood, that it won't happen, but it's going to happen. So I ask residents to help. The one thing we're not really equipped to do in a timely manner is shovel out a fire hydrant. And we carry water on our engines, but that water will probably only last anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes, depending on what we're flowing. So if you have a hydrant in front of your house, on the corner, or in the alley, depending on where you're situated, you don't mind taking a snowblower or a shovel, just kind of clear off the top portion so we can get to the ports. You'd be surprised what a help that will be in a time of need. So, that's it.
Chief Lewis, on that note, I was watching something on television where they were talking about that, how fast a house burns, and by the time a fire hydrant is cleared, if your fire hydrant is not cleared, chances are your house will be gone by then.
It's possible. I mean, it just depends on how much snow. Can we even find the hydrant in the snow? I mean, the city of Zion is pretty good. We know where they're located on the corners and which ones are located on the alleys. So we have a general idea, but is that soft snow? Is it hard packed snow? Do we have somebody to shovel it out? I mean, there's a lot of steps to it, so it's certainly possible.
Thank you. Chief Henderson?
Thank you, Mayor. By the time we gather for our next council meeting, the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act will have taken effect. It goes into effect January 1st. It's often spoken of as the recreational cannabis law, but that's incorrect. It's the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. And when it comes to licensing, it's referred to as the adult use of cannabis. And I think it's really important that people understand that. So thanks to Illinois State Police, I got a quick list here of how that law will affect what people can and cannot do. A person may not attempt any task under the influence of cannabis that would constitute malpractice, negligence, and professional misconduct. A person may not use cannabis in a public place. So that should not change what most of us experience going about our public life. And it goes further to say any place where a person could reasonably be expected to be seen by others. A passenger may not use or possess on a school bus except in the case of an approved medical marijuana case. A person may not use or possess in a school or home daycare. And this one's going to be a biggie for people to adjust to. A person may not use or possess in a vehicle unless it is secured in a sealed, odor-proof, child-resistant container that is kept reasonably inaccessible to the driver. What the state is basically saying, think of it as alcohol. You can't illegally transport alcohol. It has to be sealed. The bottle of beer can't be opened. It has to be, the seal must be unbroken. So anybody thinking they can transport it in a Ziploc baggie is going to be so sorely mistaken. Additionally, a person may not use it around anyone under 21 years of age. And a person may not use it anywhere prohibited by smoke-free Illinois. So, it's not going to violate that law that was passed. Shouldn't have to be said, but they do say it. A law enforcement officer, corrections officer, probation officer, or firefighter may not use cannabis while on duty. We will go further to say, I'm sure Chief Lewis would agree with me, that our policies prohibit the use of that off-duty. The state law does allow employers to regulate that so that what they may grant to most citizens in their personal life can be excluded from firefighters, paramedics, and the like. That is the current thing, and I'm sure we're going to continue to work on that. Some of that may be subject to future collective bargaining agreement negotiations. But that will be the law of the land effective January 1st.
Thank you, Chief Henderson. Departmental commentary, number 11. I think Mr. Bremner might have mentioned something about school board members being invited to City Hall to I know for several years we've been working with some of the taxing bodies to talk about the tax issues that have been brought up by our residents on a consistent basis. We've also, I think Mr. Ellis, you brought this up at a city council meeting several months ago. We have been meeting with the school board members since the summer on a pretty regular basis to talk about the issues with District 6 or the other districts and how we might be able to better work together and pool some of our resources as well as address the tax problems that all of our residents face in our city and within our state. Just so people know, we are the second highest, only behind New Jersey, we're the second highest state with state taxes. So we're trying to resolve a lot of those issues that have to be resolved with the state government. Pensions have been mentioned quite a bit. And I know there's some reform. There's going to be some need for pension reform within our state before we can stop, possibly get the taxes lower that'll be comfortable for all of us. With the enterprise zone coming in January of 2020, it's going to be an incentive that will help us be able to attract business and provide incentives to companies that are thinking about going across the borders. And it's not just from Illinois to Wisconsin. It's from Illinois to Iowa. It's from Illinois to Indiana. Our state has lost probably in the last 5 years close to 100,000 people per year. So there's a big tax problem, not just in Zion, but within our state overall. Item number 12, announcements on December 24th, 25th, 31st, and January 1st. City offices are closed for the holidays. Also, tomorrow, is it between 11 and 2 or 12 and 2, Cheryl, that City Hall will be closed for our holiday party for the employees. January 7th at 7 p.m., the Zion City Council meeting. January 21st, 6:15 is the Zion Township Board meeting. At 7 o'clock on January 21st, the Zion City Council meeting. Before we go into closed session, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our employees for their hard work during the year, this past year, 2019, our citizens for their understanding for the difficulties that we're facing as a city, and wish everyone a happy holiday and a new year filled with good health, success, and prosperity and happiness. Item number 13, closed session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120-2 open meetings for the discussion of filed pending and or probable or imminent litigation. Is there a motion to go? Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McDowell?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Fryerson? Mayor McKinney?
Also, while we're in closed session, there is pizza for our citizens to enjoy and refreshments that were provided, not through city funds.